let's take a look at Go Down. So this one's going to be tuned down a quarter step, and I'll have a link for that tuner down there in the description. So this one's going to start off with an A chord to the C note, third fret on the A string, back to this A chord. So we have this. Alright, now we're going to start to play that pattern that Malcolm plays, and it's a little bit trickier than it looks. So we're going to start this one off. We're going to be hitting the open A and D string, and then we're going to hammer onto that second fret on the D string to form an A chord. Okay, then we're going to hit, and we just do that once, and then we're going to hit the D and G string on the second fret one time, open A, back to that second fret on the D and G. So all together we have. Then we're going to hit the open A to an open D and G. So all together we have. And then we start over. Okay, so right at the beginning of the song, well, really when we come off of this and we start that riff, the riff's actually going to start at this point. We're not going to be playing this part, and that's just right at the beginning when we come out of that. So if you can imagine that, that's replacing, and then you'll just start the riff. You'll start the riff that I just showed you. So then what we're going to do is we're going to come down here, we're going to play C to D, and we're going to try to emulate that same rhythm pattern that we just did by transitioning from C to D and then eventually from D to E. So we're going to hit the C chord twice, and then we're going to slide down here to this D. So I'm forming these chords like this. You can definitely do it like this or like this, whatever you're comfortable doing. But it's just C to D and then D to E. And then we're going to come back up here and we're just going to grab the C note back to that A chord. But this time we're going to play that A chord. We're going to strum that A chord a lot more. We start that riff over again. So let's take a look at what's going on during the guitar solo and that breakdown. so let's take a look at this guitar solo and this breakdown. So heading into the solo, we're just going to be doing what we've already learned. We're going to be doing that A to C back to A again. Alright, and then the guitar solo is going to start. And we're going to play that same thing just a little bit differently. You're really kind of hitting that A pretty hard. So it'd be this. You're going to keep playing that. Then we're going to transition down here from C to D, right? So when we do this, before we were hitting the C twice. Well, now we're just going to hit it once. So we're just going to go. In that pattern. And then we're going to do this. And now that breakdown starts to happen. So the breakdown at the beginning of it is just going to be this D and G. And as the solo kind of builds up, or not really the solo, but the call and response starts to build up, then we're going to have, you know, that A string in there. Also going to hear that A chord ring out towards the end of the call and response. All right, then we're going to play A. All right, and then we'll play that part out really as the song winds down. And you got to listen for the changes in that because it'll speed back up again and then it'll slow down. But remember, we got a D in there, full D, and then that full E chord before we go back to that C and A. So that's pretty much it. We'll see you guys next time.